Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Bulletin Broadcast. My name is Ben, and I am joined by the wonderful Greg.
Hello, I'm the wonderful Greg.
Yeah, and let's go amazing Dan.
Hello.
Oh.
Dan-tastic, Dan-fastic, Tang-fastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of that character. What was that character in the Dandy books?
I don't
Like
think
the
I
Dandy
ever read
comics. You never read the Dandy comics?
them. I think there was someone called Bubblegum Bert in them, but that's all I know.
Well, anyway, so we are discussing this week video game adaptations. Oh, it was the Dandy. My apologies. The Dandy comics. I don't know. Greg, you're probably a bit too young for that.
Oh yeah, I was born, 2008, so this is all new stuff to me.
So yeah, video game adaptations. I'm just going to glance over Greg being 12. So we saw some recent news about some promising sounding TV series on paper.
Oh, are we about to talk about what I think we're about to talk about?
I mean, there's a few we could discuss. We've got the Fallout series by Amazon, by Westworld producers. So on paper, it should be good. And then there's also the Last of Us series, which a bunch of the team from Naughty Dog are actually producers on.
Ooh.
So on paper,
can I just assure myself, as well as the listeners, that we will not be spoiling The Last of Us 2 at any point in this lovely show we're about to do? No,
we will not. We will not.
That's amazing. I love that.
Shameless plug. Me and Dan did do a joint discussion / review. We was gonna hit you up, Greg, but we didn't know how far through it you was, and we didn't want to. We didn't want to spoil it for you. So
no, that's understandable. Not far enough is the answer. Me and Chloe have been watching Lord of the Rings and Hobbit films all weekend, so that's what we've been doing.
Partially because we didn't. It would have been very difficult to write a review without it being thousands of words.
Yeah.
So it was just easier to kind of have a chat about it, and a 40-minute chat about a game where you're not allowed to reveal any of the plot points or characters for fear of ruining it was tougher than it may have.
Yeah, I thought it'd
seemed.
be quite easy to avoid the spoilers, but yeah. Nonetheless, I will link that somewhere, or you can check it out on the Games Bulletin YouTube channel. I think we did an okay job.
Woo.
So yeah, lots of promising sounding. I keep saying standing. Promising sounding series, but we are going to discuss today the track record of video game adaptations.
And when you say video game adaptations, you are of course referring to video games adapted into TVs and films, not TVs and films made into video games.
Yes, that is correct. That is a very big distinction. That could be next
week's if we wish, actually.
Yes.
So, what do you guys remember being the first video game movie or series that you watched?
Dan's going to give a very different answer to me.
Well, you're 12, so I imagine so. My first one was, I don't know, I feel like it might have been one of the first to be done, actually, but it was the Mario Brothers movies from the 90s with Bob Hoskins.
So I was just looking at a list, and I believe that's the first actual movie. There was a lot of TV series beforehand, but I believe that was the first movie. And that's infamous, isn't it, really?
It is. I have relatively fond memories of it, but when it came out, I was 8, so I think that's why.
That's those guys from that game that I play.
Vaguely, yeah. And obviously being back in the 90s, it was kind of you didn't really. I mean, I haven't looked at the timeline, but we're talking. You know, we didn't have Super Mario Odyssey back then. You're talking like NES and.
God, it must have been like the Super Bros 3, surely. Like
pretty much, yeah. That was kind of what this adaptation was based on. So it was kind of a bigger thing than it would be now to have a game turned into a film, and yeah, it was awful. I need to go back and watch it again, but just seeing screenshots, even though the memories are fond, it just looks terrible.
Yeah, I've never actually watched it. My first memory of a video game adaptation, I always thought it was the original Street Fighter movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Kylie Minogue.
Oh God, I'd block that out.
Yeah, but I actually remember I was looking through this list on IMDb, and I actually remember the Sonic the Hedgehog TV series before I remember Street Fighter. And I remember everybody playing guitar in Sonic the Hedgehog for some reason. They all had instruments.
Yeah, and they all talked like radical, totally awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that too. Again, I don't remember hating it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a... I feel like that's kind of the whole point. Maybe like animated shows are a bit different to movies, because animated shows are the kind of more pointed at the kids who happen to be playing the game at the time. So I have memories of like Earthworm Jim and Sonic the Hedgehog, and like really liking those shows. But then
I'm a little alarmed looking at the pictures for this Super Mario Brothers film.
Oh yeah,
like they're holding rocket launchers right now, and they seem to be they're the enemy of this film. It doesn't look anything like Bowser. It looks like, I don't know, Snake Face. I would call this villain Snake Face.
It's the rocket launchers came out in the Call of Duty expansion for Mario. So.
I vaguely remember people being turned into Goombas, which meant their heads were shrunk.
Oh, these are Goombas?
And they had they were giant men in like big overcoats with tiny heads.
Yeah, and it's like, there was like a real life Koopakin or something. I think that's the weird lizard person that Greg was looking at.
This is just terrible.
I can see him in my head. I can't remember who he was supposed to be.
I don't think he was supposed to be anybody. I don't think he was supposed to be Bowser. I think he was just like an evil Koopa dude.
I think if we carrying on with this, I think probably stick with the live action stuff, because I think you're right, Ben. I do feel that a lot of the animated shows or anime based shows are better because they tend to be closer to the source material.
Yeah, I don't know about Greg, but personally, I don't really have a bad memory of a video game animated adaptation.
Oh God, there was a Mario Brothers one as well. That's just popped into my head.
I don't think I can think of anyone apart from Legend of Zelda, but I never watched that. I just know about that through the internet, talking about it, because people watched it as a child and are now influencers.
Oh God, I'm going through this IMDb list and I forgot how many awful live action movies there are. Okay, right. Let's dive into the world of live action, I guess. Yeah, okay, so my first, I mean, it's weird to say because I was probably about 10 when I actually watched them. But Street Fighter, the live action, and the Mortal Kombat movie were the first two live action video game movies I watched.
I love the Mortal Kombat movies.
Right, so I don't know, Greg, have you watched either of these?
I almost certainly haven't.
Oh, okay, well, the Street Fighter live action movie is awful. It was back from when Jean-Claude Van Damme was kind of at the height of his career and was
before he morphed into a potato.
Yeah, he was in everything, and he always did the splits and always did fly kicks, and he was very American action hero. And the movie is awful, the script is awful, the acting is awful.
I feel like the Street Fighter movie was more about having characters that looked like their video game counterparts rather than actually stringing a story together. It was more like a cosplay gallery.
Yeah, I mean, the guy who played M. Bison, looked like M. Bison. I remember thinking afterwards when I found out who M. Bison was, oh shit, yeah, he looks like the guy from that movie.
I don't know, I'm looking at a picture right now, and Chun-Li does not have legs the size of school buses, so it's not totally faithful recreation.
Yeah, they had to deviate somewhere.
She has human proportions.
Not what? In the games, not now she doesn't.
Well, no, in the games, no, that's my point. My limited experience of the games is that Chun-Li's legs are scary.
Oh, yeah, God. Crush a watermelon legs.
Yeah, whereas in this film, she looks like a real human. There's a man leaning over and looking at her, and she looks alarmed. Sorry, I'll let you guys get back to talking about it. I'm just looking at the pictures and amusing myself with how 90s this looks.
Oh, it's quintessential 90s. Whereas, I don't know, the Mortal Kombat movie I like. I can't lie. I actually really enjoy the original Mortal Kombat. I've not watched any others in the series.
I think they only did 2 kind of theatrical movies, and then they did a web series which was really good, and then they said they were going to reboot it and go back to cinema, and obviously they didn't. But the movies I remember really liking. I remember the characters being kind of relatively true to their gaming counterparts. I also remember my brothers fast forwarding the VHS to the end credits just to get the theme song and putting it on, and then just kicking the shit out of each other with the theme song in the background.
Boys.
Are we saying that it's kind of a rose-tinted glasses kind of thing? So do you think in 20 years' time, if this podcast were repeated with people that are kids now, they would say the same about the Sonic movie? And
oh yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, so obviously those movies are kind of a little bit older, and I've just realised that just as a small tangent, me, Dan, and my friend Reese kind of started this tradition of watching awful video game movies when we rent an Airbnb for EGX.
Oh yeah.
So this podcast is going to serve as a list of all of the awful ones we're going to watch.
I think last time it was the Tekken movie, a weird reboot of the Street Fighter movie, and Max Payne with A. Wahlberg, but I can't remember which one.
I believe it is Mark.
Can everyone listening and you two just stop and just Google what Blanca looked like in the Street Fighter movie?
I typed in Blanca and my Google autocomplete was Street Fighter movie.
I must have repressed this. Oh my lord!
No. Oh no! Oh no!
It's when you look at Blanca from the original Street Fighter movie, that's when you realise that Lou Ferrigno was walking around with green body paint.
He looks like Beetlejuice.
Oh, this bad.
Oh no. So for those who perhaps don't know, Blanca is supposed to be a big green monkey man with bright orange hair who makes noises and does electric. And the film, they just sort of got this guy and sort of have thrown loads of yellow paint at him and dyed his hair orange, and he just looks like an alarmed man. That's it. They haven't done anything to make him big and muscular and monkey-like. He's just sort of a bit of a hairy yellow man who looks worried.
Oh, wow.
That's going to stay with me a while.
Oh, okay. Let's come out of the 90s. Maybe Greg would have seen some of these movies.
Okay.
So I'm looking through this list, and the Resident Evil series. I'm sure
I've
Dan
seen
has
the first
some
one.
strong opinions, as Resident Evil is a very near and dear franchise to him. You've seen the first one, Greg? Sorry.
I just wanted to be excited that I've actually seen one of the films that we're talking about. It's good. It's exciting. Greg's included.
Yeah, Resident Evil's always been an enigma to me because they're not good. They're very loosely tied to the games, and they made like 7 of them, and I just don't understand how.
Who was watching them?
Yeah. Who?
Do you know what? Honestly, me.
I've seen them all as well, and I hate myself for it because none of them are good, and I always leave disappointed.
Mm-hmm. The first one
was awful.
The first one was awful, but I remember after watching the first one thinking, maybe the next one will be better. And then I watched the second one and I thought, maybe the next one will be better. And then it got weird, and into the fourth one, because if I remember correctly, it follows Alice, who's supposed to be this like genetically modified, not genetically modified, but she has like powers. I think in the fourth one she gets like psychic powers and can throw shit around. Yeah,
I remember that happening in the games as well, don't you?
And then it gets weird, and like the last one, they're like, she finds some umbrella base that's in the middle of the desert, and it's like 7 miles away from the nearest town. It's just weird, crazy series.
What I never understand, and this isn't Resident Evil, this is video game movies in general, and this will probably tie into one I know that Greg wants to rant about, but these games, these franchises that they're drawing upon have been around for a long time in most cases. So, you know, the first Resident Evil movie came out in, oh God, I can remember, it was around about when I left school, so around about 2001, something like that.
2002.
Shut up. And by then, Resident Evil had been around for, you know, plenty of years. They had plenty of plot points and characters and stories behind them. Why do they always have to make up something completely new and inexplicable with a few cosplay elements? Why can't they just draw on the stories that are already there? Do you know what I mean? Like Resident Evil, people at the time, you know, you think Leon and Claire and Jill and Chris, like they're the main kind of 4 characters, and yet you don't see any of them until like the second or third movies. Like, I don't get it. I don't know if it's like some attempt. We'll let Greg talk, because I got a feeling that some of the things we're saying will run into the movie that he wants to discuss. But I don't know if it's a case of like, you know, they're not. We as gamers feel like they're making the movies for us, but I don't think they are. I think they look at a franchise and go, "Oh, this has some cool elements. You know, let's make a movie and draw people in who don't play the games." But then Resident Evil has always been terribly acted, but over the top, kind of great, wacky stories. Why not just repeat that so that the masses get to see it? And I would quite happily pay and go and sit and see a live action version of a video game, even if I know where the story's going, just because it would be better than some of the trite that they come up with, like superhero Alice for 7 films and the world ending 4 times over. Like, the original was a horror set in a mansion with zombies. What's wrong with that?
Oh yeah, could you imagine like they'd be able to replicate like PT with the closed corridors and stuff?
Well, apparently Eli Roth came up with I think it was Eli Roth, it was someone very zombie horror related, came up with a script for a Resident Evil movie that was very horror related rather than action adventure, and they didn't want to know. They rejected the script. So it's not like people aren't trying. They just
Hollywood isn't interested.
They've just got an idea about what's marketable. They want to bring in a broad audience with, a household name, and like they're just like, well, the people who like the games are definitely going to come and watch the film, so that's a built-in audience. But they sort of want to make a film that appeals to others.
Yeah.
But how they think any of those Resident Evil films appeal to anyone, I have no idea. I mean, I know Chloe likes the Resident Evil films, but she's never played the Resident Evil games. So maybe she would be a more worthwhile person to have on the podcast right now, because I don't know what she sees in them. I watched the first one with her, and I was like, okay, this is a somewhat spooky, weird situation. There's like problem zombies and they've got guns. But that's like it. And she's just like, I just like cheap action. I'm just easy like that. Maybe that's who they're looking for.
See, that's the thing. It's a bit like the Fast and the Furious movies. If they were called like Super Crazy Lady plus Zombies, and there was 7 of them, I would probably go and watch them because they're awful and think that they were great fun. But I get pissed that they're called Resident Evil films when occasionally they'll throw a character in that people will recognise. I mean, they have done versions of Leon and Claire and Jill, but they're always minor characters that are just thrown in for a cosplay element where you go, oh, I recognise them. And then that's it. That's kind of the most you get. So, yeah, as crappy action films, why not? But why time into a franchise if you're not going to use any of the good stuff?
Whoa. We've managed to hold Greg off for 20 minutes. Go on, Greg. Hit us with your sharp-tongued criticism.
Oh, the tongue has never been sharper. I'm about to talk about, as will shock all involved, the Assassin's Creed movie, made a few years ago. I don't know when. I feel like it was 2014 maybe, but who knows. They got Mr. Fassbender in it. He sort of walks around and he's an assassin. The film basically, so I watched it once, and when it was first coming out in the cinema, I was just like, maybe this will be okay, maybe it won't. And then I watched the trailer, and then they just had this really dour, serious assassin man who's just like, I am going to do an assassinating, and they're just like, well, we won't let you, or we're gonna put you in a prison cell or something, and then you'll relive the past because we said so. It's the premise of the first Assassin's Creed, but it's all the most boring stuff about Assassin's Creed. Like, it's like no one really cares about the modern plot. Like, they would have done way better if they had just done an Assassin's Creed story and just done it in the past, and then at the end the shock twist is, oh, our character's been living this through, like, it's actually someone in the future's been living it. That's a way more interesting way of doing it.
Could you imagine if it was like an hour and a half of Altair, and then it cuts across somehow to like a dude sitting in the Animus, and then the movie just ends and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, that would be a great twist for those who've never played or seen Assassin's Creed, but kind of like the concept of it. But it would also do a good job of exploring the universe through that film, because you'll be like, oh, these are the Templars, these are the Assassins. I understand that these are two factions, and this isn't too complicated, and I sort of root for the Assassins, even though neither of that are good. And then all of a sudden, oh, this is still happening in modern day. Here is still a Templar person. Maybe he's got a big Templar symbol behind him, so it's like kind of obvious. They should have just done that. Instead, what they've done is they've got Michael Fassbender having lots of long, boring conversations in prison cells, and then he goes into the past and he lives through the life of a very boring character in the Spanish Inquisition, I think it might have been. I struggled to pay attention, if I'm honest. But the trouble... anyone who's played enough of the Assassin's Creed games will tell you that they do best when they have an interesting character. Like Ezio. He is fun because he doesn't just spend all his time being like, oh, the Assassins and Templar conflict's a big deal, I'm so serious about it. He spends a lot of the time banging like chicks and, hanging out with his family until they're dead and like chilling with that guy who's called Mario. Like, he just has a nice time. They should have just done that. They should have just made a good film that's fun. People don't want to come and see some boring, serious slog where they're trying to set you up with all of this lore. It's all just tell, don't show. It's the opposite way round. It's just, no one cares. I don't even care, and I like Assassin's Creed. Why would they? Stop it.
Yeah, it's kind of reminding me of the worry I have about the Uncharted movie. Like, that movie is just I don't know if it's like doomed or what. You know, the universe just does not want that movie to exist. Like, it's on its sixth director. I feel like fifth or sixth director. I feel like two of the people who were supposed to play Nate have walked out. They've got Tom Holland to play Nate now.
They have, and anything he's in is bound to be great fun anyway. So
yeah, I mean, it's.
But I get where you're coming from.
I'm hoping that it's on the road to recovery, but I have worries about it related to what Greg said. You know, I'm worried that maybe it will change now. We've got a new director, and now we've got Tom playing Nathan Drake, but. At first, I was kind of like, oh man, is it going to be a bit more of like, you know, I don't mind the investigating treasure stuff, you know, looking into the lore behind the treasure, but...
Is it going to be a National Treasure / Indiana Jones ripoff?
Yeah, I don't want it to be all researched, you know what I mean? I don't want an hour and 20 minutes of Tom Holland looking at paper going, yes... it may be here, and then 10 minutes of him like, it is here, now I have it.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I agree with Greg as well. I was very excited for Assassin's Creed because it was kind of, there was a lot of buzz beforehand, like, oh, it's going to break the I can't think of the word, but
the internet, like that woman's mum was supposed to.
No, kind of break the trend of terrible video game movies. Like, everyone was kind of, oh, it's, you know, they've got decent director, decent actors, decent, you know, story to go off of. But God, it was just so boring. And I went with a friend that has no particular interest in video games, and she was kind of expecting a fun video game movie and was like, oh my God, it's like, she said, it's like a boring historical epic. There was nothing fun about it at all, apart from the robot arm thing that their version of the anima that he was kind of strapped into.
I'm so glad I didn't go and see this movie.
I do not recommend.
Do you know, I thought Prince of Persia was a better Assassin's Creed movie than Assassin's Creed was.
So, interestingly...
Just because it was fun.
I've never seen the Prince of Persia movie. I loved the games, but the Prince of Persia movie actually has the second highest Metascore on this IMDb list I'm looking at.
Because it was fun. They cast Jake Gyllenhaal and kind of they made him the prince guy, and they kind of gave him the look, and they gave him a lot of the kind of scenarios, so he could wall run and he could jump off high things, and then they just kind of made it fun. They didn't try and go too much into deep lore. It was kind of, he was this kind of Aladdin-y type thieving character that ends up with a dagger that can change time, and hilarity ensues.
Yeah,
it sounds like they had fun with the universe rather than being like, okay, so you've entered the movie theater. Now sit down. You're not going anywhere for 2 hours. Sit down. Let us explain to you how to have fun with this movie.
Yeah,
just here are the ways why this is so cool and clever. Just sit and listen. Just pay lots of attention. No.
It's like going to see a version of Resident Evil where the first 3/4 of an hour is them explaining what a zombie is.
Yeah.
And then they kind of get to we made a game based on this concept. Like, that's how Assassin's Creed felt to me. It's like, Oh, well, people might not know what Assassin's Creed is, so let's really walk them through slowly every single thing, what we think they should know before we'll start doing anything with it. And by then you've just switched off.
So
I might actually be remembering wrong. I'm not sure here, but I think it actually starts with a block of text where they explain everything.
what, in the Assassin's Creed movie?
I'm not sure, but I think
Lord.
it actually did. Dan, do you remember?
Not really, but I feel like I've blocked a lot of it out for my own
They
sanity.
genuinely might have. I'm going to bring this up on my other monitor. You guys chat out.
Yeah, so I was just going to
go
say,
ahead.
like, I know I said Prince of Persia has the second best score, but the score is only 50. And the original Mortal Kombat has 58. That's the highest score in a video game movie on this list.
But as someone who watches a hell of a lot of horror films, I set the bar at 4.5, and as long as it's above that, I've seen some passable movies that have been fun for 5 out of 10. You know, they're always going to get review bombed by people, mega fans of the franchise. The Sonic movie got a really high review just before it came out because people were actually happy that they had been listened to and they had redesigned Sonic, and they were so happy that for once the fans had been listened to that they review bombed it and made it a really high review before it actually came out, and then people saw it.
I've not actually seen the Sonic movie.
Oh, you're not missing anything.
Oh, okay. That's all right then. You know, because I'm kind of looking at the Sonic tattoo on my forearm and it's like internally weeping.
Any scenes where it is actually just Sonic, like, I feel like they didn't do a terrible job with Sonic himself. He was quite funny. His one-liners were quite funny. He was quite good. It was just everything else that they tried to kind of pad this movie around it. There was strange owl creatures, and rings weren't actually rings. They could teleport you, and someone thought it would be a good idea to bring Jim Carrey into it, which just wasn't. It's not a good film, but Sonic himself was actually pretty good.
Has Jim Carrey contributed anything positive to the human experience in the last 15 years?
When did Bruce Almighty come out?
I think about 15 years ago.
Then
That's
probably
what I'm going
not,
off.
no.
Did anyone see Detective Pikachu? Because I really liked
loved
that.
Detective Pikachu. Detective Pikachu was like... It is probably my favourite video game adaptation in terms of like looking at it and going, yeah, this is the Pokemon world.
Yeah, I loved it too. And I think I liked a lot of it because it didn't Assassin's Creed you, which will now forever be the phrase. It didn't feel like, okay, we're going to start the first 40 minutes by explaining what a Pokemon is. It was just kind of, okay, this game's been going for 20 plus years. People know what it is. People get the concept. We'll introduce the world. We'll put loads of Pokemon in it that we won't make you look at. You know, I had fun just by going, oh my God, there's so-and-so, and oh my God, there's so-and-so. And I think they did it very well. But I heard a groan from Greg. Did you see it?
I loved it.
Oh, you loved it too?
I thought it was really good fun. I thought it was really neat. I think it opened a door for other Pokemon films that will be accessible to anyone with a brain. I think it was really good. I liked that, you know, it had a Pikachu that could talk like Ryan Reynolds. That was really good. It was just very accessible and it was very enjoyable. But it wasn't just talking down to me. It was like, here, have a look at a sort of film. Sort of, you know, this is for everyone. It's funny. It's you know, and for people who like Pokemon, here that's a Squirtle over there. But like literally, I watched it with a whole bunch of friends, almost none of which have experienced any kind of like Pokemon media since they were probably 5. And they were just like, oh, I had a really good time. I enjoyed that. Like everyone enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was like. So I mean, obviously, like I'm quite big on Pokemon. Ellie is fond of Pokemon from her childhood. And yeah, I have to agree. Like, I appreciated that it was kind of like you sat down and I was like, oh God. I had that kind of worry of like, you know, how dumbed down is this gonna be? But the movie, I mean, I won't spoil anything for anyone who hasn't seen it, and you definitely should watch it. But the movie's kind of like, hey, there's this world where people coexist with these creatures that is like a mutual beneficial thing, you know, they help with daily chores and they help in construction and blah, blah, blah. And it was just kind of like, yeah, this world exists, you know.
And you can show that in a 5-minute scene of, you know, you can show them helping in a day-to-day world and let the audience, okay, we get this. You don't have to dumb it down and explain it. I think that was part of my problem with Sonic. Like when it opened up with like baby Sonic in Green Hill Zone, which is where he lived, which was quite cool. But then, like I say, there was these weird creatures that were looking after him, and then these other weird creatures that were trying to get the rings because they had teleport abilities, and then Tiny Sonic got sent to Earth, and it was all this kind of like, none of this is in the game, and none of this is like, we don't need any of this. People know it's a blue hedgehog that runs fast. Just make a film.
Yeah, that was the thing with like Pokemon with Detective Pikachu. I vaguely remember like, not necessarily a montage, but I remember a part of the movie where it showed different Pokemon doing different tasks, and you were kind of like, oh, okay, right, you know, yeah, they coexist with humans. Okay.
They showed. They didn't tell. They showed.
Yeah, and that's kind of, yeah, I appreciated that. Like as a fan,
I think Greg's right as well. Like I went to see. Funnily enough, I went to see Sonic and Detective Pikachu with people, and one person in particular who hasn't played Pokemon and has no kind of particular interest really, and the same with Sonic. And he came out of both films and said, the Pokemon film said, I enjoyed that because it was a good film. Like, it was a fun film and I liked it. But then came out of Sonic and said, that was a god-awful film. So just kind of didn't, even if you have, I think that's what makes a good video game movie, is that it is accessible to those who are interested in it and those that aren't. It's not enough having the characters and trying to carry a film with just that. It needs to be a film that if someone's never played a video game, they come out and go, actually, that wasn't a bad film.
It needs to be a good film on as well. Like it needs to not just be a good video game film, a good film.
Yeah, in its own merits. Like I never thought that the first live action Pokemon film I would ever see would have a Pikachu that wasn't cutesy Pika Pika kind of, you know, one that could actually talk.
I was addicted to coffee.
Yeah, one that can talk and that's addicted to coffee. I never dreamed that would be the first experience, and yet they did it so well that it didn't matter.
Yeah.
I think it even made a search history joke.
God, like it was like quite aware of stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was not like it was a film. I think on my last thoughts on Detective Pikachu is, I think one of the best things it does is it shows Pokemon in our current world as well, rather than being like in the hypothetical Pokemon world where that's just how it always is. I think Pikachu helps him charge up his phone at one point, possibly. Like, that's just how that film is. It's just it's very believable. It's in our world. We can relate to it and we can enjoy it. And there's literally an underground Fight Club scene as well, where I think Pikachu electrocutes a Charizard that's like not a happy boy.
Oh yeah. I mean, hopefully I'm pretty sure I'm correct in remembering they're making a second one.
Yeah, I think so.
So
that'd be cool.
Hopefully that is more of the same. Can I give an unpopular opinion? Probably.
I hope not.
It's not about Pokemon.
We're here to agree with each other.
Go on.
I really enjoyed the Lara Croft Tomb Raider movie.
The new one?
No, the original with Angelina Jolie.
Oh God! It was just how many times can we make her run in slow motion with a wet top?
That's probably why I enjoy it, to be fair. But I was just looking through this list and like, I remember not liking the second one. Yeah, Cradle of Life. I remember not liking that.
That's where you draw the line.
I don't know. The first one was just like, I don't know why I enjoyed it. Maybe because I was a 12-year-old watching Angelina Jolie for an hour and a half. But yeah, I may need to rewatch it because I've not watched it since I was literally about 13 or 14.
I remember seeing it at the cinema again when I was a teenager because it was a long time ago, and I remember even then just thinking kind of, ugh. I didn't think much of it at the time. I did, however, not hate the most recent one, the Alicia Vikander
they
one.
rebooted it, didn't they? I've
Yeah,
not
they
actually
kind
seen
of
that.
They rebooted it in the way that they rebooted the game, so she was kind of a younger Lara. It was very brutal and gritty. There wasn't magic artifacts or anything like that. It was very much kind of, she's an archaeologist, like her character, and it's very much kind of people are awful and will do awful things to get stuff that's worth money. It was kind of grounded in reality rather than I want this stone because it will turn the world into whatever, like ridiculous kind of non-believable kind of stuff. And yeah, it was quite good.
Have you seen?
I mean, it wasn't brilliant, but
I mean, I liked the 2001. I mean, I don't remember the one. I think I've only watched the Cradle of Life one repeatedly. The other one I do vaguely recall, but I remember liking them as a younger person because they were just kind of over the top and sort of happy to just be full of bullshit. Like, it's just all the time the rules don't make any sense, and like the films don't actually make that much sense, and it's just like, I think one of them is just like the whole film is about her having drama with her ex, but blown up to a large scale of traveling across the world and dealing with like an artifact that's going to kill the world or something. I'm just like, that's fine. That's a cute little thing that happened, I guess.
And wasn't her ex James Bond? It was Daniel Craig, wasn't it?
Was it Daniel Craig?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Honestly, I remember seeing a snippet of it while flicking through stuff the other day, and it was the whole scene with the knife gets thrown in slow-mo, and then they touch a triangle, and then they run up a pyramid, and then they touch another triangle, and then everything stops, and she turns the knife around while time has stopped.
Oh, yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, I caught that bit, and I was like, yeah, I remember why I didn't think this was great.
I mean, on the other hand, the Hitman movie. I don't know if either of you have seen the Hitman movie.
I'm told it's on Netflix, by Netflix just now.
It is a steaming pile of dog shite. Don't watch it.
Oh, no.
Which one?
Because
they
original.
Rebooted that as well, didn't they?
The 2007 one. So it's the old one where he's like being chased by the Russians.
I can't quite. I don't have much.
Consider
memory
yourself
of it.
lucky. I'm just looking through
I don't
this
have much
list.
exposure to the Hitman franchise. I played one of the games that was kind of recent. I think it was free on Xbox, possibly, and I thought, this is fine. I'm kind of bored. I know a bit about the franchise and the film.
As far as I
Not
understand, all of Hitman revolves around bald man works for agency, kills people.
Gotcha.
Yeah, all the games are the same, so all the films are going to be the same, I imagine.
Max Payne. I don't remember watching Max Payne.
We watched it at EGX not so long ago, and it's just forgettable. It tries to be black and white, noir, cool with kind of bullet time diving, but the story is just, there's nothing memorable about it.
Oh, okay. I'm just kind of looking through this list. Okay, I feel like in terms of older ones, I feel like we've discussed all that we can.
I
Oh god, yeah, they made a World of Warcraft movie. How the fuck did I forget that? And a Dead Rising movie. Jesus.
I heard the Warcraft one was okay.
I've not watched either of them, so I don't have opinions.
Again, went to see it at the cinema. I have my only kind of experience with Warcraft isn't World of Warcraft. It is playing the original Warcrafts on a PC the size of a bookcase when I was younger, and I thought the movie was all right. It was kind of, warring factions. There were orcs, there were humans, there was lots of Lord of the Ring-esque environments and big battle scenes, and it was another one that I came out thinking, yeah, that was all right for what it was. It wasn't... I think the bottom line from what we've all been discussing is it's kind of, you've either got to go realistic and kind of keep to the theme of the games, or you've got to go take the world and just go completely over the top with it and not care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, the ones that we've said we've liked, things like, Mortal Kombat and the ones that we've got these memories of, they kind of just, they were like, you know what, let's just have a laugh with it. Let's just go for it. And they don't really care about kind of, they don't worry too much about being good. They're just more about being over the top. Whereas some of the newer ones are kind of a bit, like Greg was saying, a bit relatable to life. Putting the Pokemon in this kind of context was a very good call. And yeah, I think you've just got to pick your battles and not take yourself too seriously.
What about the, I was just scrolling through this list again. What about Ratchet and Clank movie? I've not seen that. Have you seen that, Dan? I don't think that's live action. It's an animated one, but it's scored very low.
You cut out a bit. What was it?
Ratchet and Clank movie.
No, because the Ratchet and Clank movie, I was talking to someone about this, is, they rebooted it for the PS4.
Mm-hmm.
The movie is the game as a movie.
Oh, okay. Similar to how they have the Persona anime.
I'm not sure about that, but basically I had a friend who was playing the Ratchet and Clank game when it was free with PlayStation and said, this is just the movie, like to the T. It's exactly the movie. And then when I did a bit of research, I realised that they basically just took the entire story and everything they did with the game and turned it into the film.
So yeah, like with Persona, because it's a JRPG. In Persona, the cutscenes are like anime cutscenes. So the game will release, and then a couple of months after, they have the Persona anime for that game. So there's like one for Persona 4, one for Persona 5, and the Persona 5 anime will have it will animate all of the things that the characters do when you're playing as them, and then it will have the legit cutscenes as part of the actual anime episode.
So kind of for those who aren't really into gaming, still get to like the story?
Yeah,
get to see the story of it?
Yeah. I think that's the idea. God, there's so many on here we could talk about. Silent Hill, I remember really not liking the Silent Hill movie.
I'm just looking at Detective Pikachu's concept art, and I'm going to keep some of this as wallpapers. This is really cool.
Okay, so all right, let's stop talking about old ones because we could talk about Doom and all kinds of crap. I've not watched it. I'm hoping that some of you two have watched it. Have you watched The Witcher, the Netflix series?
I have not, but I have heard of it. It was all over everywhere. Pretty cool.
I have, yes.
So, what did you think of it? Because I'm kind of hoping that The Witcher will influence these newer adaptations.
See, it's awkward because I don't think The Witcher was based on the games. I think it was based on the books that the games were based on.
Yeah. But in theory, same source material.
Yeah, but I mean, having not read the source material, the game has to be very action-packed. So the series doesn't... I mean, there's a bit, but So the Witcher game is kind of almost Monster Hunter-esque. You're fighting these big, over-the-top monsters and mythical beasts and creatures, whereas the series doesn't really focus on that. I mean, there are kind of, witches and living dead and werewolf type things, so they do touch on it, but it's more about the characters than it is about kind of fighting monsters, if that makes sense.
Right, okay.
But they did do well with it. It was very good. I know a lot of people that aren't interested in video games but watched it because it looked good and they really enjoyed it. So I think what you're saying is true, that hopefully that these new upcoming series will take a leaf.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I'm worried about the Uncharted series, I'm much, much more worried about the Last of Us series. Like,
you know what I'm not worried about?
Go on.
The Fallout series.
How are you making a series on Fallout? Like, are they making it on a game? I actually haven't looked. I don't think actually we know much, do we?
They've given almost no information other than please stand by, and Amazon Prime Video tweeted this or something, and Bethesda retweeted it like lol. We're so cheeky. But we're all just like, okay, but you've been fucking up a lot recently, so,
Yeah.
What's your plan, guys? How are you going to win everyone over to this?
So why are you not worried?
Because I have no hopes for it. It may be good, but I don't expect it. I don't plan for it. I expect to be underwhelmed. They're probably going to do something amazing, like pick something terrible, like a terrible time or a terrible setting, or like a boring setting. They might be like, oh, we're going to come up with brand new characters and brand new areas and brand new factions. You won't see anything that you like about Fallout. It won't for all intents and purposes, it won't even be a Fallout TV show. It will just be a post-apocalyptic show.
Fallout East London.
Yeah.
They could do Fallout East London. That would be terrible, It would just be regular apocalypse. I mean, I'm happy for... I don't want to sound like a weirdo who's like, super intense about the franchise or whatever. I want to see new characters and new stories. Yes, that's good. But I would like this to obviously be Fallout. I would like to see factions that I'm familiar with, enemies I'm familiar with, whatever. Just don't... Oh, gosh. But I have no hope for it. They're probably going to make lots of really stupid choices. It would be hilarious if they set it in the same time as... What's that new Fallout game that everyone hates called?
76.
Yeah, if they set it in the time and setting of 76, I would laugh my fucking arse off. I would go out and get drunk from joy at how stupid that is. You can't even... There's no words for how moronic that is as a move. And I'm so confident they're going to do something just like that. And everyone's going to be like, of course they did.
Yeah.
No, I highly doubt the Fallout community are very excited for it. The ones that are still, the vast majority, as I understand it, did not give a shit about 76. And were just like, this was terrible. They're all just sitting in hibernation like, okay, I mean, we still like this stuff and we're still playing the old ones, but, we no longer expect you guys to produce new things we're looking forward to. And that's very much how that is. So that's my feelings on this matter. I mean, you two may be more interested. You two who struggle with the Fallout series because of the gameplay. Well, Ben, you like it, but Dan, you may be more interested in this. You may have a nice time with it. Who knows? Maybe none of us will have a nice time with it. Maybe it will be shit.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you like them to do? How would you like them to go about it if you had creative control, which is a worrying thought?
I love that. If you had creative control, that's a power I love. What I would do, I think I would do several obvious, but were obvious to me that are good things to do. One, I would set it ahead of time of all of the existing ones. I would put it at a minimum 10 years ahead of Fallout 4, which is presently the latest entry in the series. I would not set it in the same setting as Fallout 4. I would set it either in... I would probably try and set it in more than one place in America. Maybe the first series would either be in out west, where a lot of the older and most beloved stuff is, in California or in Vegas, that area. I might set the first season in that and give the characters a reason to go east to where Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 is set, maybe. Or I might set it in a brand new place, but it would involve the characters that we're following, and we like touring areas of the Fallout world that are enjoyable, and us watching them influence things for the next Fallout game, which we will then play in the consequences of the TV series. That's how I would do it.
Oh, that'd be cool.
It is cool, isn't it? Setting it before any, like, in the times we already know, where everything is already, all the rules are already set. Do not do that. That is a bad idea. Don't do a prequel. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
That's fair. I mean, I was talking to a friend who feels the same way about Borderlands that you do about Fallout, and because they were talking about someone on the Borderlands team said they wanted The Rock as Claptrap, and it just set my friend off. But we were talking about it, and I thought that it'd be cool if they did it as kind of like a Cowboy Bebop, if you've ever seen that kind of. You establish, like with Pokemon, you establish by showing that there's this kind of world of bounty hunters and, scavenging, and then you could pretty much insert your characters and, have stories based in that universe. I think that is where a lot of them go wrong. They kind of try and build a universe from scratch by talking you through it rather than just showing you, right, this is the universe as it exists in this game, this film, and then following some stories of people that live in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That definitely does make sense. Play with the universe, but don't be dependent on the universe. It's good. Just have fun with it.
Yeah. So like you were saying with Fallout, would you have them... Would you see the apocalyptic event, or just have these people, right, this event has happened?
No. You will not see the apocalyptic event. The game is set 230 years after it. At most, we will have Ron Perlman in the introduction say, the war is bad, it is explosive, and then in the background we see explosions and people go, I'm dying, and then he's just like, war is awful, and then cuts forward to like more trouble in 230 years in the future, where everyone's just like, wow, this is depressing, and a kid just gets like kidnapped or something, and everyone's like, well, I suppose it's the apocalypse, wasteland justice, just stuff like that. It's fine. It's good. Just do that.
I would agree. Yeah, like you only really need like a minute intro of somebody saying, bombs dropped, blah blah blah. Like you don't need an entire fucking episode of being like, this is how it was in the 50s, like. Yeah, more. Sometimes less is more.
But when you look at series that have done that right, again, post-apocalyptic, my mind goes there. But The Walking Dead, I read the comics rather than but it opens with, okay, this has already happened, and you're following someone that's kind of trying to piece together what's happened, rather than 10 episodes or 10 issues explaining how they got there.
Yeah, it's very similar to 28 Days Later. That does it really well. He wakes up in the, I believe it's Cillian Murphy actually, wakes up in the hospital, nobody is about. He leaves the hospital, nobody is about, and he's piecing everything together. He's finding newspaper clippings and like the front page of a newspaper from the day before shit went to hell.
It's pretty much exactly how The Walking Dead starts. A guy wakes up from hospital, everything's gone to shit. Oh God, what happened? And then it's kind of that, oh, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You can piece it together with the character.
Event. It is not about the event of how it all goes wrong. It's about what do we do now. That is how it should be. Do not focus on the event. No one cares about the event. To this day in Fallout canon, we don't even know who fired first. And I'm so okay with that being the question.
That is a valid point, actually. I never realised. It's just bombs dropped.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I make a call about the Fallout series, though? I bet you they go proper serious and don't keep the humour.
Oh no! Can you imagine?
I see that. I can see that's how it's going to go. This is just me calling it early.
See, I was imagining a heavy emphasis on romance between the main character and another individual.
Oh no!
Like he finds love in the wasteland or some shit.
Yeah. If they stay true to form, the main character we follow will just be a serial romancer who just like randomly blurts into murderous spurts and sexual congress.
Just disappears for 3 months with a different companion each time.
Acts with there's no logic to the actions.
No.
You never know. Maybe they'll do what the most recent Black Mirror did, and it'll be a choose your own adventure, and you just get to pick what your character does.
Yeah, it's just an interactive Fallout movie.
I may even like that better. You're joking, but I may even like that better.
I was thinking that actually doesn't sound that bad, like an FMV Fallout. Okay, brilliant. Just before we wrap up, do you boys have any worries about the Last of Us franchise, like the TV adaptation? Is there anything you'd want to see from it? Do you want to see it based on Joel and Ellie, or do you want to see...
that's a good question.
Do you want to see other people?
Go on, Greg, you go first.
Well, you've already evoked thought and feeling in me, Ben, with that question, because I hadn't even... it had just been assumed in my head that it would be following Joel and Ellie and following the events of the video games. But I suppose there is a lot more to explore. Maybe I'd like it where it's sort of a hybrid, where it's sort of 50% following the events of the games, but 50%, exploring stuff around them, as long as that's not terrible. I mean, that could go terribly wrong. Oh, I don't know. It's high stakes, and I don't think I'm ready to make the call. What do you guys think?
Oh, I just looked it up, and apparently it is based on Joel and Ellie. The series, like the TV series, will be based on Joel and Ellie, and it's slated for a 2021 release.
Oh, that's soon.
Honestly... So, right, okay. So, I love the Last of Us franchise, right? And I'm fine with the idea of watching Joel and Ellie do this cost-crunchy journey on a TV series. However, I have to admit, when I asked you guys that question a second ago, an idea hit my mind that I really would have liked to seen the formation of the Fireflies. I really would have liked to have seen everything that happened before Joel and Ellie. I would like to have seen, the formation of the Fireflies, the rebellion against these like military soldiers who were trying to enforce this lockdown quarantine, and just kind of like the quote unquote uprising of them, I guess. As someone who's played the game and who has done that cross country journey, I would like to know more about the world that journey is set in, rather than reliving that journey personally. I mean, I'm happy to relive that journey, but I guess I was kind of hoping that the series would it may well still do it, I don't know, but expand on the lore and everything that happened prior to what I already know.
I tend to agree with what you're saying. I mean, because they've got such a great story to go off, I kind of want to see, if we're going to concentrate on Joel and Ellie, I want to see more. So I know I'm going complete opposite to what Greg said about Fallout, but I think in this one you kind of need the event, not necessarily showing the event, but showing. So in the original game, we saw what happened right as it happened with Joel, and then it's kind of a flash forward. I'd like to kind of see what happened directly after that. What did Joel do? How did he end up where he did? You hear a lot about Ellie's past growing up kind of in the outbreak, but you don't see any of that. You just kind of meet her as this teenage girl. It would be nice to see, like Ben was saying, like what it was like for her growing up, what it was like, you know, seeing the Fireflies being formed as she was kind of getting a little bit older. And then if they're going to do the cross-country thing, I think it needs to focus on what you didn't see.
Yeah.
So more kind of their relationship, and because again, I, like Ben said, I would be quite happy to live the journey again and just watch them take it, but I don't think they will just tell the same thing again. But I mean, they're so careful about their stories, and they're so passionate about them, that if any series I think has got hope of being good, I think it's this one.
Yeah, personally, it's one of those things that. So what the first Last of Us was, I want to say sort of 12 hours ish, 12, 13 hours maybe.
Yeah, it wasn't massively long.
Right. So let's assume that, you know, you've got a 15 to 18 episode series. You aren't going to have in that series 2 hours of Joel and Ellie like crossing through a city. You know, there's no real need for 2 episodes of that. So because you haven't got the gameplay, it opens up the possibility of, well, instead of that half-hour gameplay, now we can have half-hour lore expansion.
Yeah, focusing on something else or even someone else.
Yeah, you know, like for instance, like Ellie could, or Joel could ask Ellie a question and it could trigger like a flashback memory of Ellie being like 10 years old, growing up during the outbreak, and we could explore that for 20 minutes and then cut back to Ellie standing in this derelict town with Joel in the middle of this cross-country journey. You know, there's, because there isn't the gameplay element to it, you could, in theory, have a series that's the same length as the game, but explores a lot more of the world. And I feel like... I feel like... this sounds so selfish to say, but I feel like Naughty Dog almost have... Because, I mean, Neil Druckmann is involved in this. The director of the game is an executive producer or a producer of the TV series. So...
that doesn't always mean much, though.
No, it doesn't. But I don't want to say that there's necessarily a duty to expand on the lore for existing fans, but I feel like maybe a lot of existing fans are hoping that they will use this platform to not just introduce new people to this series that has this amazing story, and I feel like everybody should experience it in some way, but to expand on it for existing fans, to give us something else, like Dan said, that we haven't already experienced.
Makes sense.
Agreed.
Nice.
We did.
Don't screw it up, Naughty Dog. Do not.
Yeah.
That's the one that I'm like, please, like, don't. The Fallout one, like, very much like Greg, I have no hopes for the Fallout series. Westworld is okay. I've not watched much of it. But I just imagine this post-apocalyptic romance story about a guy who lost everything and then found true love in the post-apocalyptic world, and
by sleeping with everyone they came into contact with.
Yeah, you know, I mean, don't hate the player. Yeah, I just the Last of Us is the only series that I'm kind of holding out hope for.
Yeah, we'll see how they do. I mean, it's best not to get your hopes up about anything anymore, Ben.
Yeah, I've gotten to that
life.
point since I started doing this, like 5 years ago now, maybe a bit longer. Since I've been following the game industry a bit closer than I had done previously, I have learned to keep my hopes to a minimum.
Expect the worst.
Yeah.
Gaming, it'll change you.
Oh, it'll do something. So yeah, overall we are not overly hopeful, it seems.
Just got to go on track record, haven't you?
Yeah, unfortunately so.
If you've been kicked in the nuts 15 times by someone, you expect the 16th time to be another
when that
kick in the
16th
nuts, don't
person
you?
walks up, you don't know if they're going to hug you or kick you again.
When Greg's polishing his boot and smiling at you.
Well, thank you guys for listening, if you're still listening. And thank you boys for joining me and discussing this. I didn't know if we'd be able to stretch it out, but we did it.
We did it.
Yay. Well,
We're heroes.
same time next week, and we will see you guys then. Goodbye.
Yes.
Okay. Bye.